Okay, today we're talking about something pretty incredible. It's a survival tactic so extreme it's basically the art of playing dead to stay alive. Let's get into the Brumation protocol. When you zoom way out, life itself is this kind of frantic, high-energy glitch. It's a constant, desperate burn of fuel just to keep from freezing in a universe that frankly prefers things to be cold, still, and dead. But as our little planet tilts away from the sun and the days get shorter and colder, some creatures, they don't run, they don't fight. They do something way more radical. They just stop. They figured the best way to make it through is to stop being alive for a little while. And that brings us to this word, brumation. Think of it like hibernation, but for reptiles. We're not talking about a cozy nap here. This is a profound metabolic shutdown, a creature's way of dealing with a world that's temporarily run out of the juice it needs to survive. And you gotta understand, this isn't something they decide to do. A bearded dragon doesn't look at a calendar and say, well, time for my long nap. No. This is an ancient, deeply instinctual process. It's hardwired into their hormones, triggered by the tiniest changes in daylight and temperature. But here's the twist. Brumation isn't some peaceful, safe slumber. It's actually more like a high-stakes biological heist. It is an incredibly dangerous gamble where one wrong move can be fatal. And this is why. Bearded dragons are ectotherms. That's a fancy way of saying they're outside heated. Their entire internal world, everything from digesting food to fighting off infection, it all depends on the temperature outside. So when the heat goes away, their whole internal factory just grinds to a halt. And that leads to a really, really scary question. What happens if that factory shuts down, but there's still undigested food in the gut? What happens to the leftovers on the production line when the power gets cut? Well, this is where things get pretty gnarly. It's called the paradox of rot. Without heat, the digestive enzymes just quit. They stop working. So that last cricket they ate just sits there in their belly, and it doesn't digest, it putrefies. And all the normally helpful bacteria, they go wild, turning the gut into a toxic bomb that literally rots the animal from the inside out. So you see, it is an absolute life or death race against time. The dragon has to empty its system and shut down the factory before all that waste goes septic and basically liquefies its organs while it's sleeping. So how in the world did they survive this? Well, they initiate this ancient, incredibly precise shutdown protocol. This is not just falling asleep. This is a controlled demolition and reboot of their own body to survive the void. Now, if you're a pet owner, this is where it can get absolutely terrifying. You're looking at your pet and you're thinking, is he just in a deep sleep or is he dying? This chart is so important. A healthy brumation comes on slowly, over weeks, with very little weight loss. Illness, on the other hand, hits fast. You'll see rapid weight loss, maybe sunken eyes. Knowing the difference is everything. Success all comes down to the prep work. Think of it like a pre-flight checklist for a dangerous mission. You need a vet to check for parasites. Those things could wreak havoc on a dormant body. And the big one, you must stop feeding them about a week to 10 days before they go down to make sure that gut is completely empty. And yeah, this isn't for babies. They need to be over a year old. Okay, so what are the mission parameters? First, you adjust the thermostat. That basking spot, which is usually over 100 degrees, gets lowered to a much gentler 85 to 90. That's just enough warmth to keep the lights on, basically, without kicking digestion into gear. Next up, the lights. You have to mimic winter. So that typical 12 or 14-hour day gets cut way back to just 8 or 10 hours. This is a major signal to their internal clock that it's time to power down. And this right here, this is your most critical safety metric. You have to monitor their weight. A healthy dragon should not lose more than 5% of its body weight during this whole process. If you see more than that, it's a huge red flag. That's when you call the vet immediately. So what does this whole journey look like? Well, it can last anywhere from a month to 3 months. It starts with them slowing down, not eating much. Then they go into that deep, deep sleep, where your only job is to weigh them and make sure they have water. And then one day, they just emerge, ready to find the sun again. And waking up is just as delicate as shutting down. You can't just flick the lights back on and throw a cricket in there. You have to bring the heat and light back up slowly. Hydration is key, so a nice long soak in some lukewarm water is perfect. Then you start with tiny, super easy to digest meals to gently get that factory running again. So, what's the point of all this? I mean, beyond just survival. What can we learn from this intense biological disappearing act? Well, I think it comes down to the power of the pause. We tend to think of life as this constant forward motion, a frantic sprint to the next thing, the next goal, the next sunrise. But nature shows us, in these really profound ways, that sometimes the most powerful, most strategic thing you can do is just stop.
And that kind of leaves us with a question, doesn't it? In our world, a world that demands we're always on, always productive, always connected, what can we learn from an animal that has absolutely mastered the art of the strategic retreat?
Look, the universe is huge and it can feel pretty cold sometimes. And maybe the most radical thing we can do is give ourselves permission to withdraw, to conserve our own spark, and just wait for the light to come back. So if the world's feeling a little too cold today, just remember the dragon. Burrow down, breathe slow, and trust that the sun will eventually find you.